we're going to get started. Let me just make sure the volume. Can everyone hear my voice?
Yes.
All right, good. Yay. Well, good morning, everyone who's here, and good morning to anyone who's watching via our Facebook live stream. We wanted to make sure that we were able to get our live stream all set up, so hopefully you guys can see it okay. Put something in the comments if, like, you can't hear anything, and we'll do our best to help you. So it's so wonderful to see us, and we're a pretty small group today, and that's like a lot of summer services, and boy, it feels really good to be here with you all. It's pretty amazing. Like, you know, I asked Lindy, who's our camera human over there, if they had been to one of our summer services, and they haven't yet because last year it was the pandemic. So we're still in it, but hopefully it will not be, hopefully things are getting safer and safer, and hopefully they continue to do so. So I want to begin by welcoming all of you to First Parish Church in Bridgewater. My name is Michaela, and we are going to be talking about emotions and the ethics of emotions. And that might sound really boring, but we're gonna like it'll be hopefully challenging and expanding and interesting. We're going to be doing a lot of like discussing this morning and exploring together. So hopefully you enjoy it. So before I like kind of dive in, does anyone have any announcements that you want to make?
I have a question.
Yeah.
For next week's service, do you have any information?
Oh, so I don't yet, but I think next week we are going to be joining Franklin Church or another church for their online worship. So we will not be in person next week, but it will be either with the Franklin Church or whatever. And if you get our weekly emails, and if you don't, feel free to email us at firstparishbridgewater@gmail.com, and we will make sure you get on our list. That will be in the weekly email with the link and everything. So, and then it will be emailed to everyone that morning also with the link, like we had been doing during the pandemic. Thank you for reminding me about that. So yeah, good, okay. Does anyone else have anything, like any announcements for churchy stuff? We're just summering it out here. We're just like, hopefully we're all just kind of like chilling. Good, okay. Then let's begin our worship together with opening words from Margaret A. Keep. As surely as we belong to the universe, we belong together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect, to know ourselves to be at home, here on earth, under the stars, linked with each other. Does anyone feel moved to come up and light our chalice this morning?
I'll do it.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, would one of you want to light and one of you can read the words?
Okay. Which would you like? I will light.
Okay. You can here, I'll hold it for you.
Each of us is a flame, tussled in a breeze. With fuel added, we are brighter. Each of us is a heart, yearning and warming, glowing with depth, deeper than we know. Each of us is a mind, intellectual, clinging, postulating, searching, and creating fire. Each of us is emotion, crying and laughing and shouting, dancing in an ever-changing flame. Let us know and appreciate emotion, gifts from ancestor, gifts from the earth, builders of the collective.
Thanks, team. Yeah. And now, I have, I might have put that in the wrong spot. I meant to say felt aspiration, but, so why don't we all say our covenant together, and then instead of singing the aspiration like we normally do, I will read it, and see and feel where it lands in you. So let's join together in saying our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another. Now I will recite our aspiration, and I'd like you all to journey inwards just for a moment and feel where our aspiration lands in you. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, from every land, by every tongue. Thank you, everyone. Now we're going to start our service this morning with our opening hymn. There's a river flowing in my soul, and this is being done by, hold on one second. I actually forget. It's the First UU Church in Baltimore. Oh, actually, hold on one second. I mean, Enya's great, but Enya's pretty great, but I'm pretty sure this is better. So the lyrics are on the screen. Please feel free to sing along as you're moved. And look, they just celebrated their 200th, at least when this was shot anyway. I feel like all of our hymns have to be like jazz numbers, right?
Are you turning this superfood into...
No, I'm not. I mean, I could, but I don't know. Yeah. Oh. So today, kind of like I said before, we are going to be thinking about emotion. And there's a lot of building blocks to a community, right? And a lot of you have been here for many years, and some of us have been here for not many years. And I'm sure, though, that no matter where you kind of are in First Parish Bridgewater's history, or in Unitarian Universalist history, we've seen what building blocks go into community. And emotion is really one that isn't often looked at. I think that sometimes when we're focused on building community, we're interested in like infrastructure and projects and big ideas and like getting things done. But what about the way each of us are in any particular moment with each other, right? Like there's all different kinds of ways that we are and what we experience together. That makes us very human. So that's what we're going to be kind of diving into today, and all emotions are needed at the table. And that's a tall order, but let's dive in. It's going to be great. So now is the time in our service that we usually here at First Parish Bridgewater call it joys and sorrows, sharing joys and sorrows. But for this morning, I wondered if joys and sorrows was too limiting, because there are many ways that we are, and that we're together or by ourselves or whatever. So instead this morning, we're calling it our time of naming. So whoever wants to is welcome to come up and grab a stone and drop it into the bowl of water and share or name what emotion is coming up for you today. You can say why if you want to, you don't have to. And for those of you in the chat or on Facebook Live, if you would like to share or if you'd like to name an emotion, you're welcome to in the comments. So, would anyone like to come up first? Oh, all right. Okay, we have our first person.
Just because I'm so shy.
She's really shy.
The stone I put in is for gratitude for making it back from Puerto Rico, just missing the typhoon or hurricane that hit safely. I won't go into airline screw-ups or anything else, but there were a number. Actually, it was more the person who booked the trip, but that's neither here nor there. And it was gorgeous the whole time we were there. And as I said, we were able to go. A lot of places were still open. Like my husband had been there after his mother married his stepdad, into places that he wanted to go that he had seen in the 60s. I'd never been there. And we had a delightful time. Most of the places we wanted to see were still open. Mainly we wanted to see outdoor stuff, like the fortresses and the castles and stuff like that, and the beaches. But it was delightful, it was safe, and I feel very grateful. We're expecting, both of our sons are expecting babies. So we got together for Father's Day, and they informed us that they're both expecting again. So we're excited about that.
That's so wonderful.
My emotion is concern, because one of my best friends, who is also a dear friend of Michelle and Lauren Gowan, just told me yesterday she has very advanced breast cancer. And she's fine with it. She says when she's a year older than I am, but when she got to 90, she said, okay, that's it, I've lived long enough, so whatever comes will come. And something has come now, and she's living with it. But But she sounded fine yesterday, and Michael heard her from the other room. He said, she sounds about 50. And so it's what it is, but I am thinking of her with compassion.
Sorry, this whole sounds really terrible.
Light a candle, right?
You can take a stone and just drop it right into the water.
When Sonia's mother died, I swore that I would develop a relationship with my mother. Because I wanted to know what it felt like to be, you know what I mean? Just to have that depth of emotion. So I put a lot of effort into her in the last few years. And my brother, who's 52, had a stroke. And she's 86, and they take care of each other, right, to survive. And now one's down. So I had to write a letter to social services at the hospital, and that was killer. But if I'm not honest now, then someone's going to pay later, right? And so oddly, I feel gratitude. And I feel gratitude towards Sonia, as oddly as that sounds, people in the congregation, because you can learn so much from listening to other people. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be the cleanest mic in the world.
Why, thank you. So I'm gonna put, oh, this is so hard, these are beautiful. I'm gonna put 3 in for my 3 beautiful children. And I guess I'm feeling pride, which Ben tells me is a sin, so it's kind of Ben. I have gratitude for his humor. So Jenny started her first job yesterday, and I am so proud I can't think about it without crying, but I'm just so proud of the good that my kids will do in the world. And I should probably work on some humility too.
Yes. Amen. Yes, they will. Would anyone else like to share?
There's something in the chat.
Oh, is there something in the chat?
Sure.
Oh, and okay, so this is from, whoa, I see myself twice. Oh, this is weird. Tony shares an emotion of concern. Please send love to Melanie. Anxiety, stress, and interpersonal struggles have put her in a difficult state. She wanted very badly to be there this morning, as I did, but health got in the way. We are sending you guys so much love, and to anyone who couldn't be here today, we're really glad that with like conversation that we were having earlier during the service that we were able to go live for you guys. So so much love to you. Anyone else have an emotion you'd like to name?
I will.
I'm feeling wistful, and the reason I'm feeling wistful is because we used to go up to Maine in the summer, Ferry Beach and Saco, and I saw a program yesterday. I forgot what channel it was on. It was about forest sanctuary at
Chronicle.
Huh?
Chronicle.
Yes. They had this wonderful show on how the forest in that northern part of Maine is being protected and preserved. It's like the biggest forest sanctuary in the United States. It really made me wistful. I wish I could go up there and see it. So that's my feeling. And also very proud of the people who work on this. Very grateful for them.
Thank you, Rachel. Is there anyone else who might like to come up and name an emotion? Anyone in the chat? You seeing anybody? The camera human is shaking their head no. So I'll place a final stone, or maybe I'll do one of these beautiful shells. I'll place a final shell in the water for whatever emotions are unspoken but felt today. Now let's take a moment. Let's take a moment of silence to hold the emotions that come to us today, whatever form those take. Let us hold with love the beingness of every member of this community, of this collective. Let's take a moment and hold the emotions of all in our Unitarian Universalist family across Massachusetts, the United States, and the world. Let us acknowledge that infinity within ourselves that is enough, always enough. Blessed be, dear ones. Take a moment to breathe with me. Breathe in, into your belly and out. And once more. Breathe in, your chest and your belly, and breathe out. Slowly. You are here. And that is a gift. So this morning, now we're going to kind of transition a little bit into talking about 3 emotions that are particularly powerful and that have the energy to build, to create. Like any emotion, I guess, all 3 of these also have the potential to do harm and to be destructive. So this morning, where we lean is how to use these ways of being to create the collective. And we're going to start with anger. And for each of these emotions, I'm going to play a little snippet of a song to get us into that space gently. So give me just a moment. This is a song from the band Delta Ray. The choir has done one of their songs, Dance in the Graveyards. They are just so wonderful. And I thought that this song really captures the type of anger that we're going to talk about this morning. And this is a lyrics video, but there is a music video of this song that'll knock your socks off. So we'll take a second, I'll play it, and then we'll chat.
Judgment's coming soon, and I I watch from out window as they gun down and on the way. Tried to say it's not my problem. It couldn't happen to my friends, but the truth is that my brothers, that they are my countrymen. And if we lose our better agents, we'll get them back again. Come on and raise your voice above the raging seas. We can't hold our breath forever when our brothers cannot breathe. Come on and raise your voice above the raging seas. We can't hold our breath forever when our sisters cannot breathe. Oh, little people, won't you come around? Won't you come around? Do you make your
All right, there's your snippet of an amazing song that you should definitely listen to in its entirety. It's really good. So what came up for folks when you heard that little snippet? All good people, won't you come around? Defend your brothers and your sisters and your siblings. Oh, okay. Oh, Betty.
So I tend to shy away from anger, but that song makes me realize that anger can be rooted in love.
Anger can be felt in love.
Rooted in love.
Rooted in love. Anger can be rooted in love. Yes. Ooh, that's a really good way of saying that. Did you have a thought too, Betty?
Well, I was just telling Rachel a few minutes ago. I'm reading this book about John Lewis.
Reading a book about John Lewis.
Yeah, written by John Beecham, who's a historian, and it's about Representative Lewis's involvement in SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Committee, and all that, and their work for civil rights. And a lot of the people involved in that would get angry.
A lot of people involved in the civil rights movement were getting angry.
Yeah, and so the John Lewis and Martin Luther King and some of the people that were working together, and like he was only 22, 23, 24 at the beginning of this, they would say, yes, you've got to be angry about what's happening, but you've still got to love, and you've still got to be nonviolent.
Wow, yeah.
And so that's what I was thinking about when I heard that, because believe me, there were plenty of things that happened that they could be really angry about.
Oh my God, yeah.
But
That must be a powerful book. Yeah. So Betty was saying that in the civil rights movement, like early on with John Lewis and with Martin Luther King Jr., that like their anger was righteous, but it had to be rooted in love and so that was a part of the nonviolence movement. Right.
And just to kind of piggyback on that, it's like all good people want to come around, defend your brothers, not attack other people, but be angry at the situation, at what's happening to our brothers and sisters that may not be the fault of a particular person. There may not even be someone to go and beat up because we're mad at them, but we need, I guess we do need anger. I try to like release it because sometimes for me it gets in the way. And when it takes over me, nothing gets done between me and the person I'm angry at.
Oh yeah.
Nothing gets done. So it does have to be rooted in love.
Yeah. So Jan's agreeing about anger rooted in love, and that sometimes it's hard if you have the kind of anger that's like almost blinding, then you don't really get a lot done and you don't sustain these connections. But if you have like a love that is creative, or an anger that is creative and rooted in love, like Beth was saying too, like, yeah, I feel that.
Too much anger can be paralyzing.
Too much anger can be paralyzing. Yeah. It can be.
Yeah.
It totally can be. And it can stop people from learning. It can crystallize us in a way, right? It can keep us from growing. So anger can be a lot to a lot of different people. Anger can be like a revelator in sort of a way. And Lama Rod Owens, I don't know if anyone has read any of his books. He it's a good one for the book club, oh my gosh. He wrote Radical Dharma, and he was also a part of or he wrote the book Love and Rage, and both of these are really powerful. And one of the things that he says about anger being like a revelator, something that reveals, is that his activism was to first give himself permission to be free, to feel deeply into his experience, so he could enter into change work more himself and in deeper attunement to other people's struggle. So like, he realized that he had to adopt a type of anger that was still feeling, that was still capable of understanding people, right? It seems like a solid framework, I think at least, for collective liberation from the things that are not good for us, right? Anger can open up possibilities too of how to be together, and this quote kind of explains that, I think, in a good way. Lama Rod Owens says, if you want to be angry, that's wonderful. But if you're actually concerned with nonviolence, you also have an ethical responsibility to have a relationship with your hurt. And we're gonna come back to this about having a relationship with our hurt. So keep that in mind for a second, or with our anger. So it's okay to be in touch with it, and it's good to channel it. He is an advocate for nonviolence, and not everyone is an advocate for that. There's like pros and cons of all different ways of approaching social change. But this is one particular thing. Integrating anger might come in the form of also building trust in a group with good communication, and that means being in a relationship with your hurt, because that's going to play a role in the way you communicate, right? And there's also a thing about burden sharing. Does anyone have a sense of what that might mean for you? Burden sharing. Yeah.
You don't want to give, maybe I misunderstand you. When you share with somebody else, you don't want to say something that would cause their heart much pain. And you always need to consider you want to unload your stuff, but not interfere with theirs.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So that's a good point. So there's the idea that when we share each other's hurt, that you don't want to, there's an awareness that you don't want to like completely unload your whole entire self onto somebody. And that is a type of burden sharing that can happen, meaning like there's equitable forms of it, and being careful what exactly is expressed, sure.
I don't know who said it, it wasn't me, but a joy shared is multiplied. A burden or sorrow shared is half. A joy shared is multiplied.
Ooh,
so,
can you say that into the mic? I'm like, that's a
yeah. A sorrow shared is halved. A joy shared is multiplied. So, and I don't know who said it.
That is a beautiful way of saying that, because there's an idea about building community that sharing anything, like whether it is something that comes from anger or a joy, there's going to be benefits. We all do better when we are able to express these things together, right? So sharing our joy is just as important as sharing our anger or sorrow or anything like that, right? That's really good. Now, there's another way to specifically put anger into kind of practice as a group. And it's called the anger activism model. And it basically says that people who are made to feel angry, if they feel like they can do something about it, like they're likely to integrate what's happening around them better and to think more critically about it. if they're able to be angry about something they feel like they can change. But if they feel like it's something that they can't change, then that's where sometimes there can be destruction in a group. So the anger activism model is specifically kind of for groups that are doing social justice stuff, but it could really be for like anybody, where there's a sense that as a collective we have to share our anger, and we have to be angry about the things that we can change, because that's what's going to fuel us to do something about it that is more critically thought about than just reacting to like, it's pointless, like there's nothing I can do about this, and that makes you feel all kinds of different kinds of angry, right? Like that is, the futility is like, futility could also be a root of anger, and that can be really destructive. So that's something to kind of think about. Now, I'm going to invite you guys to turn to whoever might be near you. You can move as close to each other as you feel comfortable, but keep your masks on if you feel comfortable, all that kind of thing. And let's talk just for like a minute before we move on. How can we be in relationship with our anger and our hurt as individuals and as a community? So let's take a second and think about that. I'm going to get the dingy bowl.
It's strange that this shouldn't come up now, because I'm just now really getting into mindfulness and actually letting emotions go. I am not. So for me, my relationship with anger and emotions is changing. Anger might cause me to...
Hi everyone in Facebook land. You are welcome to chat amongst yourselves about how you think you can be in relationship with your anger and your hurt as individuals and as a community. Or you can just hang out. Put your thoughts in the chat. It'll be cool to take a look at what you guys have to think. Thanks.
Wonderful human being. We were both working,
I've done the dare. Sorry, you guys were all probably really engrossed in conversation. I feel bad stopping it. Good. Good. Hang on to some of those thoughts. We have to press onwards, but hang on to the things that you've learned from one another. So now we're going to move into the next emotion that we've already talked about a little bit, and one that means a lot if you're Unitarian Universalist or whatever, and that is love. And y'all may know this song, and I'm going to play just a little bit of it so we can hear it. This one's probably going to be really quiet. You guys can sing along if you want. You feel moved. that fall. Whoa, now the words look funky. So we got a little bit of a late start today. I don't want to keep you guys too long, so we're gonna kind of move through these like a little bit faster. But I wanted to introduce you all to somebody who, if you don't know this human, I hope that you get to read some of what they've written. So Bell Hooks is a really phenomenal prophetic writer and educator. And here's some things that Bell has said about love. Love is the will to nurture one's own or another's spiritual growth, revealed through acts of care, respect, knowing, and assuming responsibility. That's a lot. That's like a tall order. Bell says a culture that is dead to love can only be resurrected by spiritual awakening. So Bell is very concerned with the spiritual side of love. It's really interesting. When we love someone, it can be the most challenging thing in the world to do, right? Because when we lean into love that is difficult, sometimes it can hurt, and it can cause other emotions to come up. But if we lean into relationship and love and loving all aspects of someone, whether it's the spiritual side, like Bell kind of talks about, or all the other ways, like dorky laughs and things like that, and the little things that make us love someone else. When we approach a relationship like this from a place of abundance rather than scarcity, that can be a very creative, powerful form of love. What do you guys think I mean by approaching relationships with love of abundance rather than of scarcity? This one is a little more esoteric.
Well, you don't want to limit your love.
You don't limit your love, yeah. Yeah, so and that can sometimes be the most challenging thing ever, right? Because we all have needs and we all have ways that we want to be and we all have goals and things, right? But, and sometimes we find things in somebody else or in a group that we're like, this could really use some improvement. Let's work really hard to improve this. Okay, have we improved this yet? No, what do we need to do to improve it? Instead of just focusing, that's good stuff. That can be creative and that feels like we're creating something. But if we lean in, not just with the improvement piece, the scarcity, the idea that there's not something there that should be there, and we lean in with abundance, with the things that we know are there, and those strengths that we lean into in each other's love, that can be really powerful. This can also be for a church community. So we always talk about the ways that we could be better, right? But I think this is also saying what do we have? And I think after the pandemic, it's probably easier to kind of go what we have is beautiful, right? There's some things that are really beautiful here. And that's what can keep us going. Bell here talks about the culture of lovelessness, and that's kind of nihilism. And I think that sometimes, especially after the pandemic or during it or whatever, it's really easy to lean into nihilism because nothing can ever let you down if you're nihilist. I personally felt like I was really nihilist, especially, before seminary, but also before the pandemic too. I was it's way easier to just not hope for anything, expect the worst, so that you're prepared. But the collective doesn't have time for that. We got to keep pressing on. There's a philosophy. There's an African philosophy. I don't know exactly what country in Africa this is from, but
it's a Swahili word.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's a Swahili word, and it's something that a lot of different African cultures recognize, and it's the belief that we're defined by our compassion and kindness towards others, but it's like, as you are, so am I. So there's a lot of wisdom to be found from that perspective when it comes to love. These are a few liberatory self-love activities because it's also important to love ourselves. So let's take a moment before we move into our last emotion and think of the one that strikes you right now, strikes you today. I don't often believe in I believe in some coincidences, but not all. And it may be that there's something up there that any of us really need to see. So let's take a second look. Is it visible to Facebook, folks? Kind of, sort of. Being a better friend to myself. Giving myself permission to accept my own compassion. Because we each have compassion in ourselves, for ourselves. Sometimes it's hard to access that. Deciphering and following the yearnings of my own heart, even if it's at odds with what others want. Reviewing how I'm nourishing my body. Just a review. No judgment, just a review. Asking for help. Understanding myself as a physical embodiment of the universe. I am more than I think I am. Creatively exercising my emotional demons. Having some creative way to channel that stuff. Uncovering and healing the structural sources of my self-loathing. I'm not like this just because, I'm not like I suck just because I suck. There's a reason why I'm saying I suck. Why is that? Putting my hang-ups into perspective. Things that we all will get hung up on, I guess. And recognizing that self-love isn't a linear process. We don't start one way and end one way. It's like a whole, it's a windy road. Is everyone okay with this? Do you mind if I go to the next thing? This one, you know what? I'll show a little of this song, even though we're running we're almost at time. I want you guys to hear this sing. This is another song from Delta Ray, who did Dancing the Graveyards, and it is another beautiful song about dying.
My time comes under the eye, next to my parents' garden. Let the flowers grow from my body, out in the fields where the children I won't pay no rent for the land that I'm under. I won't feel any pain. I won't know any hunger. So don't cry for me, 'cause Lord, I'm free.
That's another song that I recommend everyone listen to like a million times a day. So grief is sometimes easy for communities to embrace together, and sometimes it's really hard because it exposes something very deep. So Benji Hart is an activist, and they are a fantastic human. And they say that activists, in particular, feel that they don't have the luxury to break down and really feel. Benji told a story, they were a writer and an educator and just amazing, about this little girl at a protest who asked if the police would catch them, and she was crying about it. And they promised her that it wouldn't happen to her and that it would only be adults who would be arrested. This little girl was really scared about being arrested by the police. And Benji knew that this wasn't really a guarantee that could be made. And Benji wanted to cry for this little girl and for the black women there who are taught to feel the way that this little girl did from such a young age. But Benji felt that they couldn't cry. Like, they had to stay vigilant because this march was happening. But they were like, if only there was a space that was built for us to grieve what has been lost in our community, that was just built in to the way that we are. So this brings up something that First Parish Bridgewater can do. And I mean, we already kind of do. I mean, the Caring Committee already kind of does it, where there's emails that go out and information about what people are going through. And that is a blessing to this community. I'm sure we've all been like, thank whatever that is a thing. And some groups try things like grieving circles that are regular, and because there's grief no matter if something is fresh or if something happened a long time ago, even hundreds of years ago, something that our communities have inherited. So making a community able to grieve regularly and having ritual around it, and as my professors, one of my professor's mentors said, that you have to, the ritual always does its work. The ritual always does its work. So if you create ritual for grieving or for anger or for love, then it's a way to really strengthen the community or the collective. So these are just a few different ways that we can create an ethic of care with a culture of grief. Not being afraid to put grief into the public sphere can sometimes be a really hard one. And obviously that's a decision that we all have to make for ourselves, right? And educating to make peace and to make meaning and to trust solutions directly is wisdom that LGBTQIA+ folks have gotten from our elders, from our ancestors who endured the AIDS epidemic, that we can be using during this epidemic, because there's a lot to grieve right now. And I think it's important to recognize that we are heading into a time of grief, because there's a lot of people and things and experiences and being that has been lost. Change sometimes equals loss, right? So these are some ways to kind of touch on it. Another way that I'll just very quickly go over is called Silk's ring theory. Has anyone ever seen this before? Oh, okay, all right, so a couple have. So we also have to know how to care for one another when something has happened that creates grief. So we always want to comfort in and dump out. So we have to recognize so Lee, for example, is a person who is in crisis or in grief. Lee's immediate family always needs to be comforting Lee, but then reaching out to the community to say, oh my God, this is so hard. And then Lee's close friends need to be comforting the family and comforting Lee, but then dumping out to other friends and family going like, oh, this is just so hard, etc., etc. So knowing where we can put our grief and where we can put our comforting really helps us kind of parse out our energy, because we all need energy in everything that we do, right? And especially now, because the pandemic has made it so that energy is harder to come by for some things, especially emotional things. So keep this in mind anytime. I mean, has anyone had a situation kind of like this where you felt like you were able to comfort in and dump outwards? If you don't have one to share, that's okay, but yeah.
Well, sometimes I notice the opposite happens.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas people like acquaintances who learn of Lee's grief. Might say, oh yeah, it happened to me, and not only did my mom die, but at that time my cousin was angry with the whole family and left and went. You know, that's kind of like dumping back on Lee, and so that's something we need to watch out for. That we don't do. Acquaintances are the ones that just that's really tough, Lee. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, they might not have anybody else to dump out to, but acquaintances, not so sure they really need that at that point. I think their job, so to speak, is to be that final circle and just say condolences and I'm sorry.
Yeah. Jan, that's really good modeling of that. Yeah, like the acquaintances are far enough removed so you can see that the concentric circles become farther and farther removed. It doesn't mean that someone who's in an outer circle isn't really hurting because of what's happened to Lee, but you know, they you know, so it's just good to know where to kind of dump that. I saw a couple folks.
It's important too not to judge their grief.
It's important not to judge their grief, right?
Because people grieve in different ways and for different things. And I find people lately have been really judgy about everything.
Yeah,
You know?
people have been judgy about ways of
Everything.
feeling. Yeah.
You know, and I just think that you just sort of have to try and drop all your own personal feelings about it as hard as that can be,
Right.
and just accept what their feelings are.
Yes.
Because whether you're comfortable with it or not, you have to comfort them because you would want somebody to do that to you if you were in that position.
Right. That is such a powerful piece of wisdom. Like that we can't judge the way that people integrate emotion. At least they're doing it, you know, like in a way that's healthier. And like people have been more judgmental recently, and who knows why that could be, but like.
But you can't judge them. I have a friend who, when she gets very, very upset, laughs. I mean, she just can't bring herself to cry.
So someone who's grieving might laugh.
Yeah. You know, it's like, or feels a real sense of relief that it wasn't them. Personally, I mean, even if they're grieving for that person and themselves, it's like, well, at least, you know, I'm alive even if they're not. Or and people feel really guilty about them. You know, feeling guilty that they lived and somebody else died. They said that survivor guilt is one of the worst on the planet. That people who like live through airplane crashes or shootings often can never forgive themselves for living.
Survivor's guilt is a thing, and people who don't understand might just be like, oh, it's fine. Like, why do you feel guilty? I can't even fathom it. Yeah, like trauma and crisis they cause people to feel in certain ways. And building the collective is about accepting how people do that.
People react differently to things.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's true. Did you want to share one?
I'm trying to remember the name of the psychologist that did the same setup about 20 years ago, and pointed out that sometimes the person in the middle, if someone goes wrong in each layer, to go further out rather than closer in so they don't get screwed over.
Oh, that's a really good point. So somebody, like another psychologist said that Lee may not want to go to the immediate family. They may want to go further out in the circle for comfort because there might be
Get a better perspective because no one else has more.
Yeah, there might be a better perspective. There might not be complicated interpersonal emotions. That is very true. That's very true. And sometimes people who are further out, they do have a more detached perspective. So that makes a lot of sense. I want to thank you guys for participating so much and sharing all of your wisdom. There is so much about this stuff that we can grow. And this may bring up questions also for Unitarian Universalists. You know, oftentimes we're like, can we actually establish a common ethic, a common way to do things? There's always so many other examples, like there's always exceptions to rules, there's always, and so this is something we talked about in my class. By the way, this is a project for a class that I'm doing too. It's just been morphed into a worship service. But my professor said something really interesting, and that was that one should be principled without standing for nothing. And I think that that's a really good piece of guiding wisdom. So if all of this brings up things like, well, that's not always the way that it is, like what about, whatever. My professor would kind of told us that, like, I don't want to like misspeak on their behalf. Like they're basically telling us, like, we have to be principled and we have to do what we feel is best for our collective. So building, it might look slightly different for everyone, but keeping wisdom from each other in mind about these things is helpful ultimately. And just recognizing that we are all feeling beings, right? I want to chart us along here towards the very end because there's a video I would like to show you guys before we close. It's our post-sleep. So our closing words for today come from Annie Forster. And Annie says, "Beloveds, as far as our love flows, as far as our hope grows, as far as our yearning goes, we are no farther one from another." Blessed be. Would anyone like to, you know what, maybe I'll take it, I'll like blow it out in the corner so I'm not like breathing on everyone. So as I weirdly do that, why don't we all say our words for extinguishing our chalice? We awkwardly extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now, I have one final video. Indeed, love and anger and grief and so much more play a role in our lives. And if we lean into the healing that can exist in community, whatever our circumstances are, and we work on the building, things need to be torn down, but things need to be built up too. Our world can become what Unitarian Universalists and people of goodwill across the world want it to become. And this video that I'm about to show you, our closing hymn, captures that really well. That together we are a part of the healing tide. And I think this video captures anger, love, and grief pretty well. That was War and Treaty, the most amazing husband and wife duo like ever, and they played in Fall River like a couple of years back, and if they are ever back in town, go see them in concert and buy all their music. They are the best ever. Thank you all for coming. Take good care of yourselves and you know, accept your emotions and all that stuff, and we'll see you soon. Next week is virtual, remember? Yay! Thanks for coming, y'all.
Michaela, do you need help putting away